So, did you take a PPP loan? You need to listen to this. Alright, so this video is about the PPP loan. If you don't know what that is, the PPP, Payment Protection Plan, it's a loan that you got from your bank, that the Small Business Administration government basically supplies the bank with that money, and if you use it for the right things, the loan is forgiven. If you don't use it for the right things, then it's a small percentage that you pay back after so many years. And something interesting came up on my feed this morning on Facebook. It was from Yahoo News, and I want to read you the article because this could affect a lot of owner-operator and lease operator and independent contractors out there. This article is called, and I'll leave a link in the description. This article is named Stunning IRS Ruling That Made Bankrupt Small Businesses That Took PPP Loans. Bruce Wiley, founder of the American Tax and Business Planning. He's a JD, whatever that is, CPA. So I'll read you the article. The IRS just did something that stunned me. It pulled the rug out from under desperate small business owners just as they were starting to get their feet underneath them. It was about a month ago that I praised what I saw as the most comprehensive, beneficial acts of Congress in American history with the passage of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, CARES Act. I saw the federal government committing to what I committed to doing for my clients decades ago: help small businesses. While not sold as a clear and free windfall, the drafters of the CARES Act made it clear: spend this money on the right things, like keeping your employees on the payroll, keep your books in order, and any loans you receive under the program would be forgiven. It was a lifeline to small businesses when they needed it the most, a way to defend them and, by virtue, the U.S. economy from mass extinction. But now that lifeline is being yanked away. On April 30th, late evening, when few people were likely paying attention, the IRS released guidance that essentially nullified much of the benefit of the Paycheck Protection Program created under the CARES Act. It stated that those who receive PPP may not receive tax deductions for using those funds to pay expenses. That includes expenses like payroll, rent, the very point of the PPP. Congress specifically drafted the legislation so that small businesses could receive the loans without having to count it as taxable income. That makes the IRS move all the more stupefying. It could cost some small business on the brink more than they can afford. How much could it cost businesses? The cost isn't theoretical, it's actually fairly easy to quantify. Let's say a small business owner requests and receives $600,000 to cover payroll for 10 weeks where he or she is covered by the PPP. If they can't deduct that amount as expenses, that means their federal tax burden clocks in at a rate of 37%. That equates to $222,000 increase in their taxable income. That's the important part. Meaning the effective tax-free benefit of the loan is $378,000, not the $600,000 intended by the law. The IRS has one goal: to collect revenue, so maybe this move shouldn't have surprised me. Your tax advisor might tell you that they actually saw this coming all along, and it's just how the IRS works. After all, to prevent double dipping, the law doesn't allow deductions for expenses that are otherwise exempt from tax. Even though Congress didn't create an exception to this rule, lawmakers intended the expenses to be deductible to provide the greatest possible benefit for small businesses. And while this type of tax exemption is usually reserved for organizations like churches and the military, it makes sense to expand in the midst of a pandemic where most of the business receiving the PPP aren't able to operate or bring in income due to state or local orders. And I won't read you the whole article, but I will say this. I've made my career caring for the clients, sticking up for them, and right now that includes contacting my own senator. This is how you can fight back, which I did the moment I heard about this guidance from the IRS. If there's enough collective pressure, the IRS will either back down or Congress will pass legislation that explicitly puts PPP tax deductions into law. A bill has already been introduced in the Senate that would make it clear that small businesses can deduct expenses paid with a forgiven PPP loan. There's strong bipartisan support for the bill, so its eventually passage looks promising, but the Treasury Department is opposing the legislation. If our only option is to put pressure on the Treasury, then that's what we'll do. Thankfully, after receiving messages from frustrated and beaten down business owners, a bipartisan group of congressional leaders on May 5th sent a letter to the Treasury Secretary asking him to reverse course on the short-sighted rule change. The letter, and it talks about the letter and all that. So basically what they're saying is that if you took a PPP loan and let's say you used it to pay your truck payment, or if you used it to pay your lease payments, or you used it to buy anything for your truck, now that part of that business that you would normally write off can't be written off. So if you, for example, if you if an average owner-operator in the drive-in world grosses $180,000, well, usually your taxable income is only about 40 to 50 grand, depending on how well you, how good your accountant is or how well you are at writing stuff off. If you have a like say a $20,000 repair, that's a huge deduction. That's not counted as towards your profit. And so imagine if there's an extra 10, 20, 30, 40 grand tacked on to that amount at the end of the year because they will not count the bills that you were paid for your PPP loan. So just something to think about, and and let's see what happens. But there's a lot of things, in my opinion, that are going on that's part of a bigger question, and it's some scary, weird times now because the government is doing a lot of things, and I'm not happy with any of them. So, with that being said, thanks for watching. I'll leave the link in the description. Make sure you click like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and we're all in this together. So let's do what we can to help each other out.